Free will versus predestination. Yeah, that's an easy question. Do we have free will? Is there predestination? I think honestly the answer to both those questions is yes. We have free will, or we have authentic will. Again, free is a weird word. I prefer to think of freedom as the ability to choose authentically within certain parameters. We can't simply do anything we want, so in that sense we're definitely not free. I mean, I can't suddenly decide to float. I can't suddenly decide to be something other than a human being. None of those things are available to me. That doesn't mean that I can't choose as a human being who's restricted by gravity to do certain things. I can make authentic choices, but they're always within parameters, and some of those parameters include not only physical laws, but spiritual laws, or the nature of God and the purpose of His will. We simply can't go outside of those. And so in some sense there's definitely freedom, but in some sense there's also predestination, and I personally think the two can coexist, although it's a very complicated conversation. I think the best way to think about it is this way. Imagine you're in a room and there's two doors leading out of the room, and you look through one door, and on one side it's a horrible place. I mean, it's every unpleasant thing you can possibly imagine, and you look out the window of the other door and it's a heavenly place. Where the other one was hellish, this one is perfect in every respect. It's it's pleasant, and there's a Starbucks coffee, and the coffee's free and it's fresh, and it's a grassy knoll that you can sit on while you drink your coffee and are perfect. I mean, it's just absolutely perfect. Well, you're in this room and you know what's on either side of the door, and then suddenly the room starts shutting. It's Star Wars. It's collapsing in on you, right? It's a trash compactor. We got to leave. For the purpose of our exercise, we say you have to leave. Actually. Which door are you going to go out of? Well, nobody's going to go out the hellish door. Everybody's going to go out the good door. And so you go out there and you enjoy that. Now, was that a free choice? I think you have to say, of course it was. That's what I wanted to do, and I was able to do that. On the other hand, what if, having made the choice, somebody came along and said, hey, by the way, you didn't know it, but it turns out that the door to hell was nailed shut. You couldn't go out it. So if you tried to open it, you wouldn't have been able to go out there. Now, the fact that you could only go out the heaven door and not out the hell door, does that mean that you didn't make an authentic choice? See, I would say, no, you still made an authentic choice simply because you were allowed to do what you wanted to do. So in that kind of a context, I think you can very easily say somebody can make an authentic choice, but it was also the predestined choice. There's no reason why the two can't coexist. It's a little mind-blowing to begin to work all that out. But the only reason that the predestination and free will can't exist is if you define freedom in a particular way, and that is if you define freedom as the ability to do something different than you actually did. So if you define freedom as the ability to go out either one of those two doors in our analogy, well then no. Since you couldn't go out the hell door, you weren't really free. But since in practice you didn't want to go out that door and you were allowed to do what you wanted to do, I don't know that that necessarily negates the concept of freedom, but again, it comes back to the notion of how do I define it. There are some notions or some definitions of freedom that can't coexist with divine foreordination, but there are some versions of freedom, the one that I just mentioned, by the way, which is called compatibilist freedom, that does allow you to say that, yeah, you can do what you're allowed to do, and you can do what you want to do, and in that sense that you are free, and it's exactly what God wanted you to do, and therefore predestination and free will coexist perfectly.